You're listening to the Life Edit Project podcast, where recovering perfectionists learn to feel better, do better, and have better relationships. I'm your favorite life coach and podcast host, Coach Elizabeth, and today we're talking about what happens when you expect perfect from other people. Spoiler alert, it's not helpful. We'll talk about what's really happening and why as we dive into today's conversation. Ready? Let's go. Good day, good people. Welcome to episode 105 of the Life Edit Project podcast. If you're a longtime listener, you already know that it's nothing but love over here on this end of the microphone. And if you're new to this corner of the interwebs, make yourself at home. We keep it all the way real over here, and we can do that because it's a judgment-free zone. That means I don't judge you, and I don't let you judge yourself either. And I hope that you won't judge me for whatever it is that I share about myself and my own journey. I might be a coach, but I am still just a regular person like you. Before we dive into the deep end of today's episode, I want to give a special shout out to my listener bae of the week. That's right. It's time for another one of those. A listener dropped a new 5-star rating and review over on Apple Podcasts earlier this month, and I just have to give a shout out. So someone with the username Amy2000 left a review entitled Amazing Life Coach, and it reads, "Great podcast, very insightful." Now, I know that was a short and sweet review, but it still gives me the warm and fuzzies because that is someone who took the time to actually stop and drop a rating and review, and I received that as like a nice little love note. It helps me know that you like what you hear, and it helps get the show in front of new listeners. So, Amy2000, if you're listening, I appreciate you, and that is why you are my listener bae of the week. To the rest of you lovely listeners, head on over to lifeeditproject.com/podcast for step-by-step instructions on how you too can be my listener bae of the week and get a special shout out in a future episode. All right, I'm not going to hold y'all long today, so let's just get down to business. Let's get down to the get down. Y'all know that this show is really all about perfectionism. It's about how it shows up in our lives, what it costs us, and how we can beat it. And one of the things that I'm really bent on helping my community overcome is all of the various problems that perfectionism causes in interpersonal relationships, in our relationships with other people, right? Now, I know I'm not the only coach or person on the internet who talks about perfectionism, but a lot of the chatter is about internal perfectionism and what we do to ourselves when we strive to be perfect. But sometimes it's really important to remember that our perfectionism can be pointed at the people around us. And one way that this shows up is when we expect perfect from other people. And it's a real problem. It's a problem for the same reason that internal perfectionism is a problem, because people are imperfect. So when the perfectionist fantasy we hold in our heads clashes with the imperfect reality of those very real humans, it creates tension and division and disconnection. In a word, it sucks. Now, hear me out. I'm not trying to sell you a dream of having perfectly connected relationships with zero conflict or tension. But I am saying that your perfectionism is making your relationships harder than they need to be. And that right there is the proverbial hill that I will die on as a coach. And so if you are a perfectionist, this might not be happening in every relationship in your life, but anywhere that you are in relationship with other people is a place where this can show up. As a wife and a mom and a recovering perfectionist myself, I've seen it and experienced it in my own life, in my own home, in my relationships with my husband and with my daughter. And I've also, as a coach, worked with hundreds of clients who experience this effect in other areas, in professional workplace relationships or in their friendships, in relationships with their parents or with their siblings, right? There is no area of your life that is completely insulated from this type of perfectionism. And so if you are a perfectionist or even a recovering perfectionist, none of your relationships are safe. So expecting perfect from other people It is a big problem. And I decided to spend some time on it today because it's also a really tricky problem to solve. This particular brand of perfectionism, it's let's say it's sticky, and that makes it hard to fight. And here's why. It's sticky because we feel really justified in our perspective. When we expect perfect from other people, it comes from that same underlying belief that all perfectionist thoughts rest on. And this is my philosophy. It's the belief that perfect is better than imperfect. And so not only do we expect people to live up to our version of perfect, but we also tend to believe that they'd be better off if they did, or we believe that we'd be better off if they did. We believe that life in general would be better if other people would just show up as our idea of perfect. Now, this can look a lot of different ways, so it can also be really tricky to recognize it for what it is. So, for example, if you're a parent, you might believe that your kid shouldn't cry when they're upset because crying is only allowed when you're in physical pain. But not just regular pain, it's got to be extreme pain, right? Don't go crying just because you scraped your knee or stubbed your toe, right? Better be a broken bone or something, right? They should be able to cope with their very big feelings without tears because that's better. In the workplace, I've seen this show up with people who try to micromanage their subordinates, or even they try to micromanage their peers, right? And let me tell you, there is no one who is so annoyed as a perfectionist at work that has been assigned to a group project with a team of people who actually have ideas and want to help do the work, right? And you are either this person or you know a person like this, right? The perfectionist would rather either do all the work themselves or they would rather just tell everyone else what to do. Now, in marriage, this can look a number of ways, but I'll just give you one example for the purpose of this conversation. It might look like always harping on that one bad habit that your spouse has and pointing at that habit as evidence that they're not as invested or not as committed to the relationship. And as you hold up that one bad habit, you're completely dismissing the 10 positive habits that they've actually built, right? So these dynamics are hard to disrupt because it often feels totally reasonable to us to expect our kids to just shut off their feelings on command, or for our colleagues to defer to our ideas, or for our spouse to be completely evolved instead of being a work in progress, right? We feel like we deserve this kind of perfection from others. And so we feel really justified in having and keeping our expectations. And so it's easy to double down on them. But here's the thing. Your perfectionism doesn't actually create perfection. Not in you, and especially not in other people. Expecting perfect does not make it more likely that you'll get perfect, because perfect people do not exist. So let me ask you, if expecting perfect isn't creating perfection for you, what's it doing? What does it lead to? How does it actually impact your relationships? And I'm not one for gatekeeping, so I'm going to tell you the answer. You are missing out on all kinds of opportunities to connect with the people that you do life with. If your kid's crying and you're shushing them, you might miss an opportunity to comfort them or to help them manage their feelings in a healthy way. At work, you're probably missing out on opportunities to allow other people to take low priority tasks off your plate. At home, you're probably missing out on lots of opportunities to witness and support your partner's growth so that they actually become more of the partner that you want. At best, you're missing out on tiny moments of connection all over the place. But at the worst, you will end up teaching the people around you that they can never be good enough to have a good relationship with you. And then those people, they learn to stop trying. So now, if this is sounding familiar, and it's not what you want for your relationships, let me help you do something different instead. Tap the link that's in the show notes to book a sales call with me, and let's talk about how my one-on-one coaching services can help you have better, easier relationships with the imperfect people around you. And just let me say this, the answer is not to have zero expectations of people. I'm not going to tell you to stop holding people accountable or to drop your boundaries or to lower your standards for how you want to be treated, right? None of that is the answer. Instead, I will help you find answers that work for you and your specific relationships as we work together. All right, folks, that is it for today's conversation. I will be back in your ears next week with another juicy episode. In the meantime, practice allowing other people's imperfections to be enough. Peace.